Okay, so I will officially call to open the audit committee meeting of the Bethlehem IDA at 8:01. My name is Georgette Steffens. I'm the chair.
Victoria Storrs.
Oh, of the audit committee, not of the IDA itself. Very different.
I'm a member of the audit committee, chair of the IDA.
David Rivera, audit committee. John Prisco, CPA auditor.
John Taylor, senior economic
Will
developer.
you state this on the?
And then on the call, we have Al Michaels, or go ahead, Al.
Al Michaels, the CFO.
Dick Cotlow, a board member and the treasurer of the Bethlehem IDA.
Wonderful. So our audit process is about to begin. And so we wanted to just quickly go over with John how that process will work. I know we've all received a copy of the engagement letter that really outlines that process. But before we begin, we just wanted to ask and have any questions answered about the process, or if we have any other items we want to talk to John about. So John, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thanks. So the audit's actually underway. I think we have a couple of open items for Al, who's going to get back to us. But we visited Al's office about a week or so ago, and we had no real issues to report thus far. With the audit process, the first phase of the audit, we're always making sure that the internal controls, if there's any major changes, any changes in roles or changes in people who are doing or approving, we want to make sure that those changes are reported to us anyways. We did an internal control study several years back, and where we had some recommendations, and it was at that time where you implemented those recommendations from us, and we haven't really had any findings or recommendations since. With a smaller organization, limited staff and crew, we always like to involve the board especially with the approval process. Al Michaels, as you know, CFO, he's a CPA. He knows the deal, and so when we go to his office, everything's typically organized. When we ask for certain tests of transactions, we always make sure that there's that approval process is there with every transaction that we're testing. Specifically, bank statements and reconciliations. Al has the authority. We don't want to give one person too much authority. We don't want Al, having access to the QuickBooks and cutting the checks and also reviewing the bank reconciliation of the bank statement. There's got to be somewhere else that there's a level of approval for unusual activity. Lucky for you guys, as part of our audit process, we have a certain scope that we test over. So, just to kind of give you an idea, we've tested just for this particular year that we're auditing. Your total expenditures were about 146,000 roughly, and we tested about 82% of those. Your revenues were about 563,000. We tested about 96% of those. So this is one of those audits where we typically look at a good portion of the transactions that are there. So just to kind of, I guess, throw that out there. On top of the other audit procedures, like, for example, confirming your bank account balances at the end of the year and that sort of thing. So like I said, there's really nothing to report as of thus far. We're not completely done with the audit. We haven't had drafts yet. We'll probably have drafts maybe to you guys in a couple of weeks. But everything looks fine for now. It looks like the IDA had another good year, profit-wise. I think your beginning retaining or that position was about 1.2. I think you increased that another 400,000 this year. So kudos to your team. But I guess this is the opportunity to discuss, like, if there's anything that we should be aware of, whether during the audit period or even subsequent. If there's anything going on in 2024 that we should be aware of, that by the time we date our audit report, that's usually when we're opining up to that date. So if there's any subsequent events that we should be aware of, major deals going on that you want to report in the financial statement footnotes, now's the time to let us know.
extension of DHU
That's in,
2022.
at our December meeting, we approved a temporary pilot extension for the organization commonly known as PSEG. Financial effects of that are to maintain the pilot payments received by the town essentially unchanged. The effects for us are not great. I mean, they're not substantial,
Material,
not negative. So we don't always have a transaction at the end of the year that is then going to have effects the subsequent year. But this one, because it's a keep everything in place for a while longer, I don't see it as material for financial decision. Not worth footnoting.
Okay.
Just have two quick questions, right?
Yeah.
So what is your level of examination of risk?
For like dollar wise,
Well,
or just-
yeah, I'm thinking, you would not go in and look at a project that we have and assess whether there's any risk that the project is viable or not viable or long-term, if they'd be able to make their pilot payments and that kind of stuff.
no, yeah, that's really something that's done kind of internal, within the board or within the organization itself. We can certainly, that would kind of almost be like a special project. So with a financial statement audit, we're opining on, the numbers, that your internal controls are good to go. We look at the numbers just to make sure that everything is reported in the proper period. We were making sure that, the snapshot of your statement of financial position is as of December 31st, 2023 is good to go. That's how we're reporting it. But in terms of looking at an individual project to see, like you said, that would kind of be more of like I believe more of an internal kind of. Yeah.
Second question, are there any guidelines as to when, and how much, I guess I don't know if it's like cash to expenditure ratio where a nonprofit starts losing nonprofit status because we're sitting on $30 million?
Never. I get that question asked all the time, and that it's always good, especially this day and age, to have that level of cushion, to sustain operations for, like, for example, if you didn't have any major projects going on, and your expenditures exceeded your revenues for several years in a row, you want to make sure that you have enough in the bank or as a cushion to sustain at least, a year's worth of operations, assuming, you didn't get any money from 1 year, for example. So would you lose your exempt status? Absolutely not. Yeah, you wouldn't lose any kind of status. The only time that we have nonprofits are kind of our niche. 65% of our work is nonprofit government type clients. So I do get that question asked a lot. The only way you can, lose an exempt status is if you don't file. You guys don't have a tax return requirement, but a nonprofit, for example, would have a 990 filing due every year. If they don't file for 3 consecutive years, they automatically lose their exempt status. And lobbying, that's something else that is involved, where you can lose your 501c3 status and become a 501c6 or something for a nonprofit. But you guys won't have anything to worry about here.
Were there any new, like, I know that they always give you these weird, wacky auditing standards each
always.
year. Were there any new ones that will impact us?
No, not you guys. So the only, last year there was the 606 revenue recognition. It's kind of like a reiteration of an older SAS for how to recognize revenue and when, certain parameters, this big long list. So you've kind of always been following that. And it's mainly for, organizations too that are receiving donations, contributions and grants, foundation grants, things like that. It was just board specify on, like the nonprofit organization side. The most current one was the lease ASU, I think it was 842 or something like that, and that was if you're leasing office space, they wanted you to report a right of use asset and a corresponding lease liability for your operating leases. Yeah, so I mean, that's something that affected a lot of our nonprofits, but in this case, there's no paying any rent anymore, so that didn't affect you guys. Oh yeah, they're always trying to keep us on our toes.
I have a credit card question, but I want to make sure that Dick has the opportunity to think and to ask questions.
I don't know.
Same for me.
Victoria, if you have any questions? Yeah.
I'm fine.
Must be on vacation.
And you feel comfortable with the segregation of duties, and that there's limited risk there?
Yeah, I do. And again, the amount of transactions, the fact that you have an audit every single year where we're testing the amount of transactions that we're testing, it's safe to say that, the internal control process, even if we weren't here auditing every single year, with Al as a, CPA and CFO, and the fact that you do have, your treasurer, involved in some of the approval processes, I think you're good to go. Credit card activity is so minimal. I think you have one charge on the credit card every year. That's one of the areas that we test internal controls is, your cash disbursement process, cash receipt process. Don't believe you have payroll anymore. So, and then you have your credit card or debit card process. And, those are the areas that we look, even the IT controls, make sure that there's passwords, things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, with the, we believe that, there are good segregation of duties.
Glad to hear about the credit card because we've been talking about possibly implementing a policy for its use. But we want it to be like a workable policy. And so, I'm really glad to hear the level of testing you do on that card. Do you ever provide like model policies or anything like that for internal controls on credit cards?
Credit cards are, so you never want, like, for example, the number one finding that we get is if an executive director has access to a credit card and he or she uses that credit card and he or she also approves that credit card statement. Same thing with a bank statement. If you're responsible for the ones that are, cutting checks, doing the reconciliations, you don't want to be, yes, you can, of course, review the bank statement for unusual activity, but there's got to be somebody else one level higher, like a treasurer or president, that would also review those items. And same thing with the credit card. The credit card statement. What we look for is like, we'll just take one random statement and make sure that say that all the receipts are attached to the statement. We want to make sure that all the receipts are attached and correspond with each charge. And then we also want to see those. And again, it's in this world of technology, we don't, the person that's reviewing the credit card, they can either get emailed a credit card copy, for example, and then sign it and scan it back so that you have something for your file. Because what we look for when we're looking at when we pull a credit card statement randomly, we'll just, we want to make sure that those initials are on there, indicating that an approval or review has been done by someone else that doesn't have a credit card, an actual card that can make charges. And we always say that if you can't get the initials on the physical statement, and an email to the individual saying, hey, look at the credit card, no unusual, nothing important, I'll review it, all looks okay. You print that email and attach it to the credit card statement, because that's just one of the things that we look at. Okay.
We have a policy which I agree with, okay, so I'm not, where our chair has a $10,000 approval process on any transactions, so that we can drill down all we want on credit cards, but we have that policy, and we do a pretty good control because Al distributes the credit card statements on a monthly basis but we do have that authority so that, and again, I agree with that authority and personally, I know it won't be abused. So, but that's, it's sort of, how much detail do you need to do if you have that authority for, $50, $100 charges? So, we do have controls. I think so.
Thank you, Dick. As it happens, the chair can neither write checks nor use a credit card. So I can approve something, but if someone doesn't want to implement it, well, we'll find that.
And so is will you then come back for our March meeting and present the final
The actual
draft?
drafts.
Mhm.
And then
And
usually,
then we adopt it at the board meeting?
yep, you would approve it, and then the only thing that would be missing is the parish report attachment that, usually Al,
Yep.
Right.
comes later,
Okay.
so.
I do have a question for, Al and I discussed about accruing interest on the CDs. Did we do that?
That was one of my questions to Al. Actually,
That was my
I had
question.
down here too. Yeah, depending on the materiality, I do see there's, 3 CDs that are on the books right now, with no accrued interest, so that's, we can certainly get those numbers if it's over our threshold. I mean, it's really, a matter of, if you want to accrue it for this particular period through December 31st. And then.
What's your materiality? What's your MP?
I think it might be I gotta look, I can't, I can't recall off the top of my head.
I would think, our accrued interest might be over 10,000.
I would think so, between $600,000 in CDs, I would probably, yeah, depending on when you got them,
So I would think it would be material. I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't have the balances, obviously, when I did the statements, the 3rd of January. But I'm certainly very open to adding, I mean, not that we didn't have a good year to begin with, but I can remember many years where Frank Venezi was questioning why I would budget $1,200 of interest income, in our budget. So having a year where we had 20-something thousand would feel good to me for a variety of reasons, even though I had nothing to do with it. So yeah, that's just one of the things I figured as part of the audit process, you would confirm the CD balances and, if necessary, just give me the numbers to make that adjustment on the books.
Yeah, I think that's something you would probably have to call, like, individually, Trustco, Citizens, Key Bank, and just, speak with a rep there and see what those accrued numbers would be. And then we can make the adjustment for that.
Okay. Yep.
So, yeah, because a lot of times, sometimes we send a confirmation out, for example, because as you know, when we confirm the other balances, we pretty much, look on your screen to make sure that the balances coincide with what you're reporting here. But in this case, yeah, it would, sometimes they just confirm the principal balance, not the accrued. So I think.
Yeah, they don't.
It might take a little bit more legwork, just, making those 3 phone calls to those 3 different banks and just finding out, as of December 31st, what that accrued amount would be for each.
We can, I mean, I'm sure we're capable of estimating the accrual. I mean.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that's the other thing. I didn't know, this is the first year we had any sizable CDs out at
Right.
12/31, so I'll do a little legwork and put some numbers on, it's probably gonna be closer to 7,000 or 8,000 based on when the CDs matured and were taken out, so we'll see.
But we should know what your materiality threshold is and, and we can make a decision on that.
Yeah, I mean, if my individually significant is, 15,000 and the accrued interest is 7,000, that's something that we might pass on, but it's really, that's just our threshold. So, I mean, if you guys think that you would want to include that $8,000 accrual, we can certainly do that. Even though it's under our threshold, we can still make that adjustment. So we'll see what Al comes up with, I guess, and then
That
you know,
was the only thing I saw with, and Al and I discussed it. And he said he was gonna discuss with you. That was from our internal statement, that was the only open item that I noticed. I thought Al did a good job putting it all together.
all right, great.
The only other
Other-
thing is on MD&A, since we have investments, maybe we should do some sort of a line item in the MD&A about our, invested cash. Yeah, maybe I'll try to write something up on that.
Yeah, well,
Dick, it would be great if you could write it, since you've really been leading us toward making these investments and generating the cash. This has been a very good outcome from your effort.
Mhm.
Are there any other questions for John?
I guess last one is, you said you'd have the audit by March 31st. When's our board meeting, like probably the 20th?
Yeah, we'll have another audit committee to review it before it goes to the board.
Okay, so you'll get it.
So we'll have a meeting, maybe early to mid-March.
That's when usually
Yeah.
the first week of March or something.
Yeah, that's fine.
Our next board meeting is March 27th.
We'll want to be a couple of weeks ahead of that, because
Yeah.
there are changes, because we want to post it for all the members at least a week in advance.
Do we want to look at maybe Wednesday, March 6th? So, and that will give us 3 weeks before the board meeting to.
Yeah,
Is that, gives you enough time?
yeah, I think that'll give me more than enough
Okay,
time.
okay.
Like, you'll have drafts, like,
Okay.
mid-February, then you'll need it,
Okay.
so.
We want to set up that meeting?
Yeah, we'll do, does the 6th work at 8 o'clock?
Yeah.
So it's a week after the board meeting. The other thing we could do is we could do it right after the board meeting on the 28th, if you think you'd have it done by then. If you wanted to just do the board meeting and then roll it to the audit committee after the board meeting. So you don't have to come back twice. I mean, I'm happy to come back. It doesn't matter, whatever
So do
you
it.
prefer. February 28th.
I think that could work, because then any other members who wanted
Yeah, if they wanted to stay.
preview could stay for that.
Okay, so we'll do it immediately following. Immediately following.
Sit 9 o'clock,
Yeah,
9 o'clock, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think our agenda, it's a real agenda for February, but we generally try to keep the 2 minutes.
Okay. All right, so I'll follow up with Kate on that, to get that posted. If there's no other business, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So
Second,
Second.
all in favor?